Nimrod's kingdom, they can't do this without the consent of Nimrod. Meaning he was either okay with it or directly behind it. Right? Go ahead and read.
And burned them thoroughly, and they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth.
So they wanted to make them a name, lest they be scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth. We're going to show you later on that this was an act of rebellion. Because that's what Nimrod's name means, rebellion. The book of Jasher tells you that his original name was Amraphel. But after he rebelled against God, the Hebrews renamed him Nimrod, a name that means rebellion. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language.
He said the people is one, they're united, and they all have one language. Go ahead and read.
And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them what they have imagined to do.
See, and you got the Freemasons, the satanic ones, that are trying to tell you that the only purpose of this tower was to make a gateway to heaven. Nimrod was just trying to get to God, get closer to God so he can worship him. That is a lie. And don't ever let any one of those satanic Freemasons try to tell you that. That is not why this tower was built. It was built out of an act of rebellion. And we're going to show you. Go ahead and read.
Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language.
So God said, let us go down and confound their language. God is talking to the angels. Go ahead and read.
That they may not understand one another's speech.
And it was the birth of multiple languages. Because at one time, everybody on the planet spoke the same one language. Go ahead and read.
So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city.
So they stopped building the city. In other words, the building of this city and this tower was incomplete. They didn't finish it because God stopped them. Maybe now you understand when you look at the back of your dollar bill and you see that pyramid with the very top of it with the eye in it, and at the top of it is not touching the rest of the pyramid. That represents incompleteness, but it also represents we gonna finish this. That's what the Masons are trying to tell you, the satanic Freemasons. They never finished. They're trying to finish what Nimrod started a long time ago. But we ain't gonna get off of that. We got something even more sinister in this class we want you to look at. We can deal with that in another class. But go ahead and read.
Therefore is the name of it called Babel.
Therefore the name of it is called Babel, Babylon. Why?
Because the Lord did there confound their language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
From there he scattered them. They never had a chance to finish this project or this tower. They're going to try to finish it. They're working at finishing it right now. And in the process, they're giving the name of Freemason or Freemasonry a bad name. Now, every time you hear that name, you think of some secret society involving the devil. And that's true when it comes to them. But I'm going to show you that you, as a believer in Christ, are supposed to be a Freemason. According to the Bible, not no philosophy, according to the Bible. But let's take a further look at this whole little Nimrod situation. We're going to go to the book of Josephus. This is the historian, Josephus. And we're going to Antiquities 1.4.2. And we're going to read about the story of Nimrod. And look what Josephus, a Hebrew historian, says about why Nimrod built this tower. This is 1.4.2 in Josephus. And we're going to start at paragraph 113. I'm going to read. Listen to this. Now it was Nimrod who incited them to such an affront and contempt of God. Wait a minute. This is saying that Nimrod incited the people to hold God in contempt. In other words, think of God as being evil. that's kind of weird, being that the Freemasons idolize a man that's telling you that God is evil. The original Freemason that they worship was a man who made the world believe God was evil. What do you think they're doing today? The same thing. But let's keep reading though. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, a bold man, and of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe it to God, as if it was through his means they were happy. So he persuaded them to believe that if you are successful in life, it don't got anything to do with God. This is the person who the Freemasons idolize and worship. A man that's telling you God ain't got nothing to do with it. Makes you think, don't it? Listen to this. He said, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. In other words, you are God. You are the reason why everything is going good in your life. God don't got nothing to do with it. This is what they trying to tell you now. They got this from their Grand Master Nimrod. They hold him as a master mason. And remember, we read in the Freemason Encyclopedia that Nimrod loved Masons. He loved people that could build, right? But the Freemasons today aren't literally building anything. They are symbolically building something. They ain't out there working with rock and brick when you go down to these Masonic halls. It's a temple you're going to. It's religious. It's worship. But why do they call themselves Masons? Because they're building up to something. That's why they call themselves Masons. But check this out. It says, he also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God. So he had to change the government into tyranny. In other words, you ruling with violence. This is how he convinced people not to believe in God. By threat of death. Wait a minute, that sounds kind of familiar, don't it? Sounds kind of like the false prophet in Revelation. How you going to be threatening people under death to believe him? This is what Nimrod was doing. Right then, back then. Right? Now listen to this. Seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. Wait a minute. If a man is telling you, don't believe in God, but believe in me, what is that man saying about himself? He's God. That's what Nimrod was doing. He was making people worship him. Just like that false prophet that you read about in Revelation 13 is going to have people doing. But it also tells you in Revelation 13 that Satan is behind that false prophet to come. So who do you think was behind Nimrod when he was doing this? A man that rebelled against God. Satan. So you mean to tell me that the Freemasons idolize and worship a man who has Satan behind him? Yes. So who does that mean the Freemasons worship? Satan. It's just that simple. We should be able to end the class right here. But the title of the class is The Two Masons, not who do the Masons really worship. Right? But we're going to keep reading, right? He also said he would be revenged on God. In other words, he going to get back at God. He going to fight against God. Right? If he should have a mind to drown the world again, he told these people that if God even think about bringing another flood, I'm going to deal with him. That's rebellion, isn't it? Right? For that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach. That's why that tower was built. An act of rebellion against God, and to reach so high that if God ever flooded the world again, it wouldn't be able to reach them. Nimrod obviously had no concept of science, because he would have known that when you get to a certain height, there's no air. So he would have killed himself. Right? But listen to this. And that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Nimrod said, I'm going to get God for killing all these wicked people in the flood. This is the man who the Freemasons idolized, the satanic ones. They idolized this man right here. They will tell you this in their own encyclopedia and in their writings. All praise be to Nimrod, the original master builder. They got all kinds of literature that states that. But see, people don't know this. right? A lot of people are starting to figure this out. That's why now every time you hear the word Mason, oh, that's satanic. But remember I told you, Satan wants you to think of him when certain things are said when you really should be thinking of God. He did the same thing with the name Lucifer, right? But I'm going to keep reading this. This is paragraph 115. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod. All the people rebelling against God behind Nimrod, right? And to esteem it a piece of cowardice to submit to God. So the idea back then, the doctrine going around back then is, if you worship the true God of heaven, you a coward, you're weak. That's what Nimrod convinced the people. That's exactly what the Masonic Lodge is telling people now. They don't come right out and say it. You don't find this stuff out until you get to the upper levels. Right? Why all the secrecy? Now look at this. It says, and they built a tower, neither sparing any pains, nor being in any degree negligent about the work. And by reason of the multitude of hands employed in it, it grew very high. It grew very high. Maybe now you can understand why all these nations like to build these towers real high. It's an ego thing. Why when you go to Washington, D.C., you see all these obelisks around. You follow what I'm saying? Which dates back to Egypt, which was nothing but a giant penis or phallus. That's all that is. All of that came from this original tower. Man's ego, man's desire to be God. That's what this is all about, y'all. Listen to this. It says, but the thickness of it was so great, and it was so strongly built, that thereby its great height seemed at first to be less than it really was. It was so big, it didn't even seem like it was that big. It couldn't have been that big. You follow what I'm saying? But we're going to keep reading. It was built of burned brick, cemented together with mortar, made of bitumen, that it might not be liable to admit water. Remember, the whole point of it was to protect it from the flood. So they built it waterproof. Y'all understand? Listen to this. When God saw that they acted so madly, he did not resolve to destroy them utterly. See, God could have just got mad and just completely killed all these crazy people, since they were not grown wiser by the destruction of the former sinners. See, God had mercy on these people. But he caused a disturbance among them by producing in them diverse languages. That's what we read in the Bible. And causing that through the multitude of those languages, they should not be able to understand one another. The place wherein they built the tower is now called Babylon, because of the confusion of that language which they readily understood before. For the Hebrews mean by the word Babel, confusion. So that's what you're dealing with here. The Masons, the satanic Masons, worship a man who rebelled against God and wanted the people to believe that he was God. Don't that sound like the false prophet in the end? Exactly. He wants the people to worship him. He's going around telling people he's God and are threatening you on the violence and death, that if you don't worship him, you're going to die. Right? Maybe now you can understand how Nimrod is a forerunner to the Antichrist. People don't understand this. We got other lessons that deal with this, right? But right now we're dealing with the two Masons. But now, let's move on. What we're going to do now is go back to the Haley's Bible Handbook on page 82. I also got this off of the internet. This is the Haley's Bible Handbook on page 82. Under Nimrod. Look what it says right here. Babylonia was long known as the land of Nimrod. We already knew that because it was his city. Right? He was afterwards deified, his name being identical with Merodach. So he was deified. In other words, after he died, the people started saying he was God. Other sources will tell you that after Nimrod died, he ascended to heaven and became the sun god. And his wife, Semiramis, got pregnant by him before he died. And the child that was born was named Tammuz. And she was telling everybody that Tammuz was Nimrod reincarnated. This is where the original doctrine of reincarnation comes from.